So, I like art, and presumably, if you clicked on this video, you also like art. There's so many ways people can express themselves and get their stories and themes across to others, and I think a lot of that can come from their respective art styles. Whether it be something cute, something cool, something scary, or even something unconventional and off-putting. There's tons of unique styles that stand out from one another and elevate their stories and world. And I think an important part of being an artist and creating is the inspiration all of them have on you. Whether you've realized it or not, there's probably all sorts of aspects you've taken from another artist's style to apply to your own. And the fun part is seeing that in the execution, and how much further you can expand that and take into a whole new different direction. But what's got me so interested in art styles recently? As some of you may know, over on Twitter, there's an artist called NGreenTail, who went viral for their art style study posts, where he adapted his OC into 20 different styles, perfectly translating his character and the design into each story without feeling out of place. Being stuck in a little bit of an art rut and worried that my style wasn't really improving, this thread inspired me and made me realize if I want to improve, then I've got to go back to the basics like when I was a kid and learn. Specifically, study and replicate the art styles from things I love. So, as an art channel, I think it's about time I hit the obligatory mandated 10 art style challenge video that everyone eventually does, and try adapting my persona, Alpine, into some of my favorite series, and maybe get to know me a little more, since upon rewatching some of my videos, I realized I kind of present myself as fairly formal and straightforward. Of course, doing 10 art styles is going to take a lot of work and require quite a bit of research and organization, things that were all made 10 times easier with today's sponsor, Milano. As an artist, I tend not to have the most perfect organizational skills, especially when it comes to references and research. I usually just end up dumping a lot of it into a folder or keep it locked up in my head, which often leads to a lot of notes or plans getting forgotten very easily. But that's where Milano comes in. Milano is an amazing organization tool for artists, allowing you to structure and create a variety of boards however you see fit to keep track of notes, plans, images, and more. With its extensive range of tools, you can shape everything to your personal liking, while also making it look extremely professional. And did I mention it's all free to use? For the video, I structured everything into their own separate subboards, displayed on a homepage with Alpine in the middle, just to remind myself who I'm adapting in these styles. And from there, I was able to just jump around easily, adding or replacing reference images whenever needed, as well as writing down any keynotes I had in mind for capturing a certain style, such as sharp angles, thin lines, maybe remind myself if something has to be textured. One worry I did have was beginning the project, as I didn't actually know where to start. It felt like there was so much to choose from that I wasn't really sure where the right place was to begin. However, Milano was one step ahead, as the moment you create a board, it immediately pops up with template options, ranging in a variety of different fields, from fashion to illustration, writing, and loads more. So I was able to start putting together a stylistic mood board faster than I've ever done before. And because of its helpful tips in guiding the user around to get comfortable with the features, I eventually found myself confident enough to actually start creating my own board from scratch. Another feature I really loved was how easy it was to share everything. When I was talking about this project with my friends and looking for feedback and recommendations, I was able to just click the share button and copy a link that allowed them to access my boards, all without needing to make their own accounts. If you're at all interested in Milano, which I highly recommend, go follow my link in the description below or in my pinned comment, and you can start creating all sorts of boards and organizing your notes for free. Once again, thank you so much for Milano for supporting the channel, and with that, let's crack on with these art styles. Just a heads up, there are some flashing lights around these timestamps during the speed paint. I've tried to slow down the footage and reduce the brightness, but if you suffer from epilepsy or just don't like eye-straining visuals, then maybe skip ahead. You'll only miss a little bit of commentary, and I'd rather you all be safe. Starting off, I thought to pick an easy style to help ease into things, and what better series to choose from than the one I'm currently obsessed with thanks to a new entry releasing, Katamari. Katamari is a series of video games following the tiny prince of the cosmos, rolling up all sorts of food, objects, and people into a ball to help create new stars in the galaxy, after his father, the king of cosmos, accidentally destroys all of them again, for like the 5th time. It's a very simple gameplay loop helped by its surreal and weird comedy and beautiful soundtracks, but my favorite part has always been the cousins. Depending on the game you play, you can actually swap the prince out and play as one of his many weird and unique cousins. Some of my favorites being Harvest, Kanoko, and Pezzo, some of which clearly inspired my take on Alpine in this universe. I imagine Cousin Alpine would be similar to Harvest, sharing an apple head. Who knows, maybe they were born from the same tree. However, unlike Harvest, who was perfect and ripe, Alpine was a little too early, and even has a worm living in his head. But that's okay, Squid the Worm is pretty chill, so he can stay. While Katamari's modern style is more softer and rounded, I actually took more inspiration from the older game's surrealism and sharp shapeology, all thanks to Kaita Takashi's art direction, who, while not involved with Katamari much anymore, is still making games, or rather, as he puts it, digital playgrounds, that I highly recommend you try. That's not to say the modern style is bad, but I just prefer how everyone looks a little more funky and alien-like instead of solely cutesy and similar looking. Seriously, I'll never forgive them for taking away Ichigo's strawberry body. Well, that and I was worried the more straight tube arms would be even easier to draw for me, as this is already a fairly simple style. And this section is already pretty short as is, so I have to find some way of artificially extending it. I think for the first style attempt, it looks pretty good. The torso pattern could have maybe been reduced in detail to just the diamonds, but other than that, I think it did a good job, and Cousin Alpine fits right into the Katamari universe.
You gotta do what? I gotta believe!
Continuing with the theme of video game styles, we've got a Y2K staple, Parappa the Rapper, a rhythm game that came out on the PS1, following our main character, a dog named Parappa, learning and solving multiple situations, all while rapping along to some groovy songs, and believing in himself. It got a sequel game on the PS2, a spin-off, and even a 30-episode TV anime with additional short anime. Parappa is an incredibly popular figure, and still relevant as a pop culture icon. So tell me why he hasn't got a new game in years. Sony, I'm begging you, I'd even take an official translation of the anime with correct subs, because the ones available on the Internet Archive are just so wrong. None of these characters would be saying this. What am I reading? Okay, back on track. The game was created by a collaboration effort between Masaya Matsura, a music producer, and Rodney Allen Greenblatt, an American graphic designer, and the whole game just oozes personality. So I wanted that personality to show in my art too. Also, technically there are like 3 styles: Rodney's artwork for the game, the in-game sprites, and the anime. But for my sake, I'm just going to try and adapt this specific cover, which seems to combine the game and Rodney's style together really well, and it feels the most Parappa to me. While humans do exist in this world, with the TV news presenter actually being Rodney Greenblatt himself, it just felt a little boring to keep Alpine human and not take full advantage of the surreal and wacky design principles that are available here. So we're going to mix that up. The general design principles seem to be simple but saturated color palettes, usually only one pattern at a time, and lots of loose wavy lines. So, keeping up those apple motifs, because I like apples, Alpine's now a personified apple person, with a return from Squib the Worm sticking out his head. While I was going for an apple, I must admit with the leaf fringe, it does read a bit more strawberry, although it could also just be a me thing. His clothes are fairly simple, kind of mix and matching different character parts, from Sunny's sharp flared dress for the shorts, Katie's crop top for the sweater vest, and clunky shoes for, well, the shoes, and Parappa's baggy jeans as the leg warmers. I also thought instead of a mic, because I cannot sing, he'd have a pencil, because an ice, you know? My biggest struggle was definitely with the colors, as despite yellow being my main signature color, I couldn't really make it my whole body, as then it'd read more orange than apple, as well as a clashing with my sweater vest. But then I thought the red was too saturated and distracted from the rest of the colors. Not to mention, I'm using like 5 colors when I should only have 3. I don't know, I was stressing at this bit, but it somehow works out in the end, so everything's fine. Overall, I'm pretty happy with how it all turned out. Well, I'm still feeling a little off about the colors. I think I captured the thick and shapy lines pretty well. And at least on first glance, he looks like he could fit right in with Parappa's group. Kind of like a Graggle Simpson moment. Another video game style? I swear we're nearly done here. And you're probably going to start to notice a pattern of Y2K baddies appearing. We're doing Sonic. Specifically the Sonic Adventure to Adventure 2 art style. I don't think I really have to explain who or what Sonic is. He's a video game and pop culture icon, so let's just skip straight to the style's history. Sonic Adventure marks a big point in Sonic's history, not only for being the first 3D mainline Sonic game, but also where the cast got their modern redesigns that we see to this day. The cast redesigns were handled by Yuji Yukawa, who adapted them all in this very sleek, sharp, flowy style that people still bring up to this day. I have a bit of a strange history with Sonic, as despite being more of a Nintendo and Mario fan, I still played a lot of the handheld games growing up, with Sonic Advance 3 still being my favourite Sonic game of all time. But I also love the Rush series for introducing one of my favourite characters, as well as Sonic Chronicles for everything its little heart was trying to do. If Sonic Chronicles has no defenders, I'm dead. Now while with Parappa, I didn't want to make a human persona because it felt too safe and boring, with Sonic, it's like the complete opposite. See, you're all probably expecting me to assign myself an animal and basically design a furry OC, except I thought ahead of the game and decided to try something even harder. Adapt to human. While I'm still using Sonic Adventure as a basis, I looked at Billy Hatcher for human inspiration. Since, while not by the same character designer, they still carry similar principles that help me figure out how to draw the face and ears. It also helped give me inspiration for adapting the orange nose as a bandage, and the leg warmers more like chaps. I wasn't really sure how well the sprouts would still fit on my head, so I tried to distribute the green elsewhere, such as a little ascot meant to look like an upside down sprout, and the green gloves that feature a free dot design. A lot of this style depends on the shading and lighting, as the sharp cut smooth gradient look was everywhere on these characters. And that was the bit I was the most scared to do. In the end, I'm not really sure how I managed to pull it off. I just tried my best to hide any mistakes with the highlights layer and prayed everything would work out in the first try, or else I was just gonna give up, cancel everything, YouTube channel's done, I give up. If I can't recreate Sonic, what's the point of going on? I'm super happy with how this style turned out. Strangely, it kind of looks like a weird cross between Mario and Sonic style in the final result, but I'm sure most people will see Sonic Adventure, so I can live with that. Enough video game styles. It's about time we mix things up and get into some of my other hobbies, like dolls. And what's a more iconic style to replicate than Barbie My Scene? Specifically the original art style the dolls first released with, before it got refined to that more lightless, model-esque style everyone's more familiar with. Barbie My Scene was a spin-off of Barbie, made to compete with their rival at the time, Bratz, sporting new, more exaggerated faces with glam makeup, and way more trendy Y2K fashion pieces. I get My Scene isn't everybody's cup of tea, especially parents at the time who also proceeded to shame Barbie the same way they shamed Bratz for being promiscuous and sexual, you know, for wearing crop tops and flared jeans, makeup, okay. But there's something about My Scene that I just adore, my favorite characters being Madison and Chelsea. For this style, I couldn't actually find the name of the illustrator or team behind it. Maybe because it was a temporary style that was replaced very early on, so if you have any information or leads, I'd love to hear about it in the comments, because it's so striking and different that I'm surprised it never got used again. From its sharp angles, bold lines, simple structure, it's girly Y2K in the best possible way, which is what drew me to picking it over the more expected style. For this Alpine, I tried adapting him like a fashion model, showing off a fashion pack you could buy, all feminine and poised. The short clean hair is more choppy and roughed out. His sweater vest is more of a loose jumper over a long shirt that's cropped a little, to give a bit of midriff, before we get to the short shorts that lead down to some regular socks and the typical My Scene boots. I thought enlarging and tilting the diamonds felt more like a fashion statement, and while I would have loved to have carried over the leg warmers, the girls rarely actually wear them, the only time I can think of being the roller skate line, so I just think changing them into regular socks that lead into chunky boots fit better. I don't really know how else to put this, but drawing this made me really nostalgic for Ugly Betty. I rewatch it like once a year, but something about 2000s fashion will always make me think about Mode magazine, and Betty Suarez once again having to save the day. And we're all done. And he totally fits right in with early My Scene. Almost like he's the gay best friend character that's so prevalent in 2000s movies. Let's just hope he isn't the evil gay fashion friend, otherwise we'd be in real trouble. And problematic. Uh-oh, cancelled. For our next style, we have much more of a modern one, Peach Riot. Peach Riot is a fictional band consisting of 3 members, Gigi, Poppy, and Frankie, created by artist Libby Frame, who in collaboration with Popmart, has managed to turn her OCs into blind box and collector figures. It must be crazy going from posting about your OCs in different outfits and their interests, to having people buying merchandise of them and producing real songs. All quite inspiring, really. I can't really pinpoint when it was I actually discovered Peach Riot. I think it was something my partner introduced me to, as like figures that look really cool but will never be able to find or buy them. So color me surprised one day when I visited the Popmart store in central London, and guess who was just hanging out on display for sale? I still remember rushing to Discord to tell everyone in my friend group that Peach Riot was out the UK, almost like the British were coming moment. They're just really cool looking figures, and they fit really well when displayed with others. The main reason I wanted to choose this style is because it felt like the perfect counter to my usual art style. Thin lines instead of thick, less detail instead of more, and a fun focus on creative fashion. When adapting Alpine, there was only like one guy that I had for reference, so instead I just used Poppy as a strong influence, while looking at Frankie for how to do short hair. As for fashion, it's all very modern, which is great because I too have a pretty modern fashion sense. So most of the outfit translated pretty well, just changing small aspects like the sprouts to hair clips, and the sweater vest into a baggy jumper, just because it felt a little more realistic and cozy that way. And I even gave Alpine an apple necklace. just to reference how some of the figures come with real chain necklaces sometimes. And here it is all done, and I think he turned out amazing. One of my favourite style experiments for sure. And for some extra flair, I added on some paper texturing, just to match the sort of handcrafted vibe that I get from a lot of the extra art Libby makes of the girls.
You gotta do what? I gotta believe.
Now, real Alpine heads would know this channel all started thanks to an Equestria Girls redesign video. And considering how much I love drawing those pony girls, but not posting them, there's no way I couldn't try the Equestria Girls style. The girls went through quite a lot of style changes and experimentation from concept to final product, but the key art direction can be tied to Rid Sorensen, who, having worked on the main show, helped bridge the gap between the two, and was involved in the first two movies. But another figure who I think is just as important is Katrina Hadley, who was a lead storyboard artist in all the movies and specials, and helped co-direct some of them after Rid left. While the style didn't change drastically, keeping its usual coloured round outlines with occasional sharp edge, aspects of it did change over the series, primarily more detail being added to hair and clothing, as well as changing the silhouettes of characters so they wore less chunky and hoof-like shoes. Something that's not bad, but not what I prefer. I'm a big shoe defender, so we're keeping them. For this adaptation of Alpine, I had a lot to work from, as there are a lot of characters in the Equestria Girls movies and specials, so looking for references for doing a cropped vest or puffy sleeves was no problem. So my main goal once again was trying to convert certain aspects over realistically. I thought the sprouts in the hair didn't fit, so hair clips they are again. I also thought the collar area looked a little too bland without anything going on, so I added the ascot again, just to keep those pops of green colour on an otherwise very brown and yellow design. My favourite part is the hair. I think it did a really good job adapting it short yet cute, as well as just having a nice silhouette. I did not want to have to draw Alpine with a bowl cut. Overall, I'm pretty happy with how everything turned out. I think younger me would be really proud knowing we finally learned this style, and I didn't need to trace the lines off a computer screen onto paper anymore. So, there's something I don't think a lot of you know about me. I was a Family Guy fan. I had season 1 to 13 on DVD, and I would watch them religiously in my teens, to the point that even though I don't actually like the series much anymore, that's still my second family. They'll be there when I need a place to stay or someone to talk to, and just like them, I'm a Family Guy. But seriously, the Family Guy lore runs deep with me, so much that I just had to include it as a style. Plus, everyone here likes the Family Guy jokes that trend on social media every other month, right? Right?
Peter. The horse is here.
Originally created by Steph MacFarlane, the series has been running 24 years, with the Griffins being a dysfunctional family and getting up to all sorts of hijinks, but also having changed. Some parts for the better, some parts for the worse. One of them being the style, that went from being quite imperfect and charming, to just like pristine and clean hellscape. There's no life between their eyes anymore, it's scary. But despite that, I can't bring myself to hate these characters. So much so that I once planned out a whole fantasy isekai spin-off with Lois Griffin and Marge Simpson that becomes this tragic toxic Yuri that I never posted online out of fear that people would drag me for it. Or how about the time I pitched an adult fashion doll line called MILFs? Motherly, intelligent, loving figures, of course, based on the mums from other similar adult shows like American Dad, Cleveland Show, and Bob's Burgers, and presented to my friends dressed up as Lois Griffin. To be fair, I actually won that presentation night thanks to it, so it still has a soft spot in my heart. Either way, Family Guy and my creative process are strangely interlinked, so here we are. I was even so serious about making sure I got the style down as close as possible, to the point I went to the Internet Archive to find and use the Family Guy Yourself game just to get the base down before making smaller edits to the overall thing, like a more triangle nose or better hair shape, and the leg warmers do not fit, but I like them, so here they are.
Holy crap!
It's YouTuber Alpinesquib.
I literally don't know what to say. I love this. My humor's broken because something about this is so funny to me, to the point I keep editing myself into the show just for fun, as if I'm Graggle Simpson. I'm glad I can finally be a part of the family. Guy. This one might be a little confusing, as technically the style I'm adapting is Osamu Tezuka's, one of the world's most influential mangaka and animators. But I'm specifically choosing to adapt his style from Astro Boy. more specifically the 2003 TV anime, because it's up there as one of my favorite animes ever. Often referred to as the godfather of manga, Tezuka is responsible for so much art and series in the world, from Astro Boy, Blackjack, Kimber the White Lion, Princess Knight, Phoenix, which I always thought was the Phoenix, but no, it's just Phoenix, Dororo, Buddha, Unico, the list goes on. And that doesn't even account for the list of people or stories his work would go on to inspire. He loved nothing more than to create and experiment with his stories and adaptations, leading to some truly inspiring pieces. Well, that and maybe furries, but we're not going to talk about that at this moment. For this adaptation of Alpine, I was really torn, as I didn't know whether I wanted to make him a robot or a human. With a robot, I could excuse the more quirky aspects like the sprouts or thicker limbs as robot features. But with a human, I could lean more into the Tezuka design principles and appear more like a supporting friend of Atom. In the end, Robot won, but despite the fun hair shape and the antenna sprout, I really didn't like how it turned out. I think it looks more like Atom dressed up as Alpine, as opposed to Alpine in a Tezuka style, you know? I do like the extra touches that I add to the piece, trying to make it feel more natural and match the anime cell look, such as some grain and bloom, something that would inspire me on another style coming up later. Overall, I'm not upset or mad with the final result, especially Atom's boots as leg warmers. I just think that I'm more disappointed with how safe it all feels. Although this is my fault for only using Astro Boy 2003 as a reference and nothing else from the Tezuka library. Either way, it's not the end of the world, and it's something I've learned for next time now. Keeping the anime train running, we have a core anime that inspired me when I was younger. Powerpuff Girls Z, the anime adaptation of the popular Cartoon Network show, The Powerpuff Girls. I loved Powerpuff Girls growing up, so it made total sense for me to look up clips of it on YouTube whenever I got time on the family computer, which led me to finding AMVs using anime clips, specifically ones that ship the girls with like the Rowdy Rough Boys, or Bubbles with that one guy that gets turned into a werewolf monkey thing. Either way, it's thanks to YouTube that I watched nearly all of that series in like episodes that were split up into 3 to 4 parts each. The series is a magical girl action comedy, heavy on the word comedy, and one I see is quite contentious for a lot of people online. I'm probably biased thanks to my nostalgia having watched it when I was young, but I love the show. It's such a silly fun time with some great animation, and it sort of reminds me a little of Magical Do-Re-Mi or Choppy Rouge Precure. Like, I get it. The anime adaptation of an action cartoon doesn't have very punchy or exciting action scenes like the original, which can feel like a disappointment. Like you wanted Codename Kids Next Door, but instead you got Totally Spies. But also, that doesn't mean either is bad. The show very early on established it was doing its own thing, and if you wanted a more action magical girl show, just go watch Precure, it's the same thing. The show's distinct styles all thanks to character designer Miho Shimogasa, who also did character design for Cutie Honey Flash, another one of my faves, and was one of the animation directors on OG Sailor Moon. It's the eyes, it's all in the eyes. She just has this one specific eye style and I love it. And while at first I was a little worried I wouldn't be able to replicate her style as easily as I was hoping, it all came together surprisingly well. For this Alpine, I pictured him acting as a 4th member of the Powerpuff Girls, since the magical girl outfits are the most iconic looks from the show, taking on an appearance blending the Rowdy Rough Boys jackets with the shorts and shoes similar to the girls' uniforms. And the yellow color scheme just fit right in with the girls, kind of completing the primary color group, and almost looking like a game of Simon Says. For my weapon, I had to put some thought into this, as all the weapons are based off different toys from a yo-yo, a hammer, and a bubble wand. So trying to be unique while also blend in with the others, I ended up giving Alpine a skip rope, something that can be used kind of like nunchucks for close combat, or swung around to act like a shield, or even thrown to kind of act like a grappling hook. And kind of like how Buttercup has yellow accents to pop off her green, I gave Alpine green accents to help pop off his yellow, tying everyone all together now and making things feel more complete. And here's Alpine all finished up, and I'm so happy with how he turned out. While sketching, I can't lie, I was sort of panicking and struggling to really imagine a cool pose, or how to actually adapt the style accurately, but somehow as I started drawing, everything just came together and it looks great. Now I just need to rename myself Balpine to fit in with the naming conventions, and we're all good to roll. For our final style today, I left the one that I considered the hardest till last, Neon Genesis Evangelion, a series that has invaded my life and infected my head with worms. This is like my favorite anime ever, hands down. Evangelion was a 90s mecha anime, following our lead character Shinji Ikari as he's called back by his father to defend a devastated and struggling Earth from the invasion of angels, alien-like creatures that keep attacking the city of Tokyo free using giant mech suits called Avas. Whether you've watched the series or not, you've most definitely seen his character somewhere, whether it be from merch, online memes, Fly Me to the Moon, or even just the general aesthetic, because this series is drop-dead gorgeous. The character designs and art direction were handled by Yoshiyuki Sadamoto, who's designed for so many iconic series like Nadia the Secret of the Blue Water, Fooly Cooly, Die Buster, The Girl Who Leapt Through Time, Summer Wars, Wolf Children. Not to mention he also adapted the Evangelion manga, which, no shocker here, is also one of my favorite mangas of all time. His artwork and style are incredibly distinguishable, with realistic weight and folds to clothing and hair, but also simplifying faces to their bare essentials to read someone's personality. He also designed one of my favorite characters ever, Asuka Langley Soryu.
9 units in 3.5 minutes, so that's 20 seconds each with time to spare.
As I said before, I consider this style to be the hardest one for me, because ultimately, I can only recreate the texture of a real pen or watercolors so much with digital art and resources. So I mostly just tried emulating the anime rather than the manga or the artworks, since I think I can at least replicate the ink of animation cells a little easier. To make sure Alpine would fit in with this style, I kinda just mashed elements of different characters together until I had a strong base, mixing Kensuke, Shinji, and Asuka's hair all together to make something smooth yet rough, taking heavy inspiration from Transfer Ray's school uniform, and just using Shinji's trousers, but cutting them off so they're more like shorts. The leg warmers are there. I still don't know if they entirely fit within the style, but they don't look wrong, so I'm gonna say it's fine and they can stay. I also decided to keep Alpine in a regular outfit, since while a plug suit would be iconic, I am not drawing all that or designing a color scheme. That's a job for another day, and I don't think Alpine would really be an Ava pilot. He'd probably just be some random guy in the art club who gives some supportive advice from time to time and then dies. No need to worry about him. My favorite part was probably coloring, because once I started blocking it out, everything just came together. And just like with Astro Boy, I wanted to try and imitate the glowing effect that some of the animation cells had, and I think it really elevates the whole look here and just sells the style more. I'm super happy with how this one turned out, and it felt like a great hurdle to finally get over. While I was worried I wouldn't be able to do the style justice, I ended up never even trying to replicate it in the first place. But the most important thing you can always do is try, and try, and try again until you finally get something you're happy with. Woo! With that out of the way, we've done 10 whole styles, and I had a lot of fun. I spent a lot of my October just experimenting with art and seeing what new things I could try or push. And I think this definitely helped a bit with my art rats. Who knows, maybe the next challenge I'll do will be the scariest one of all. Backgrounds! I think the most important thing I learned, other than line sizes and texturing, is that you don't necessarily have to improve a style. Styles are incredibly ranged and expressive in all sorts of ways, and will always be personal to you. So draw in a way that makes you happy, and don't feel pressured to always one-up yourself or compare to others. All art is a journey, not a race. So just keep creating what you enjoy and are inspired by. Don't forget to check out NGreenTail's account, which I've linked in the description below. But I also wanted to give a shout out to some other big sources of inspiration for this video, who also did a 10 art style challenge. That being PinePaz, NerdyArty, and Frog and Bunny. Be sure to check out their videos in the description below too. But with all that out of the way, I hope you had a good time watching. Have a great rest of your day. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, and I'll catch you next time. You know, with all the art styles and editing, I think there's a bit of dust in the air or something. Whew, look at this. Achoo! What? Is there something on my face? Oh my god, cut to the end! Cut to the end!